On February 6, a deadly earthquake struck Turkey and Syria, prompting nations from all over the world to rush in to help. Allies and foes contributed, including Greece, Qatar, Iran, Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and India. The so-called Kahramanmaras earthquake took a terrible toll on people and infrastructure, including crucial infrastructure in northern Syria and southern Turkey. However, the disaster's potential effects on Turkey's political system are less well known. In relation to the most recent interactions between Turkey and Syria, the precise location of the damage caused by the earthquake is especially significant. Again, the timing of the earthquake has a big impact on whether or not it can stop President Erdogan's election campaign. The purpose of this article is to examine how the Kahramanmaras earthquake affected Turkey's domestic politics and, by extension, its anticipated engagement with the Assad government. Domestic promises. Since a Syrian immigrant killed a Turkish teenager in Ankara, the country's sentiment has significantly turned anti-immigration. The stabbing sparked riots in a number of Turkey's regions. For the upcoming elections in 2023, political parties have launched anti-immigration campaigns in response to the growing anti-immigration sentiment. The Justice and Development Party, AKP, of President Erdogan's opposition has promised to work with the Assad government in Syria to help the 3.6 million Syrian immigrants return to Syria. However, the AKP government has chosen to proceed in a different direction. The government said that Syrian territories could be invaded again, similar to Operation Peace Spring. According to the government's declaration, the objective of this proposed offensive is to establish infrastructure for the resettlement of Syrian refugees and neutralize Kurdish YPG forces in the region. The government has tried to get in touch with the Assad regime in Syria, but the talks haven't worked out well yet. The steps that have been suggested are in line with the rising sentiments of Turkish voters, who are willing to support any party that brings back Syrian immigrants to Syria. The majority of these immigrants are natives of northern Syria, a region occupied by rebel forces or the Syrian National Army, SNA. Turkey had welcomed them over the years to maintain opposition support in Syria. However, the potential deportation of the same refugees has sparked discontent not only among the refugees themselves but also among the various factions of the opposition to Syria supported by Turkey. The government's plans may have been delayed by the recent series of earthquakes. First, because the Turkish-occupied territories there have always been governed by the provincial governments in southern Turkey, the affected regions of Turkey were to naturally serve as the key provinces for providing logistics and support for Turkish operations in northern Syria. The proposed operations foundation has been shaken by the earthquake's destruction of the majority of these areas' infrastructure. Second, the discontentment of the populace in the southern districts with the sluggishness of rescue efforts has already begun to surface. The rescue and relief efforts have been hampered by adverse weather. Possibility of cooperation. Erdogan's election campaign could be disrupted if his plans are delayed. The president must take unprecedented action in light of the declining public support for him and the intensifying attacks from the opposition. His anti-immigration pledges did not appear to be convincing enough to Turkish voters already. This is due to the fact that the proposed operation would have required a significant amount of time and could not have produced the desired outcomes immediately. Due to the fact that neither side is willing to make concessions in the Syrian civil war, the diplomatic effort to entice the Assad government has also proven to be enormous. On the one hand, the government of Syria has made it abundantly clear that the topic of any negotiations would be Turkey's withdrawal from Syrian territory. Turkey, on the other hand, is unwilling to end its support for the Syrian National Army. Additionally, the Syrian Salvation Government, SSG, and the Syrian National Army have voiced dissatisfaction with Turkey's proposal to hold talks with the Assad government. However, the most recent natural disaster may have the potential to alter these dynamics. The current conflict has been centered in the northern part of Syria. The region has experienced war's devastating effects and absolutely lacks infrastructure for aid and health care. Due to the ongoing bombardment by Syrian and Russian forces, foreign aid and rescue teams cannot enter the area. Rescue efforts cannot be carried out by the opposition forces. However, due to its ineffective control over the region, the Assad regime is also unable to provide relief. It seems like the time has come for the Turkish government to act as a mediator between the two, bringing about rescue and relief efforts. Because Russia is so preoccupied with Ukraine, it has given Turkey more room to get involved in the conflict. This makes it even more likely that Turkey will play a role. Turkey's politics, among other things, are increasingly dependent on the earthquake's location and timing. The public's disapproval of the president has been harmed by rising inflation and sentiment against immigrants. His unpopularity has only grown as a result of the sluggish relief efforts following the earthquake. Among all of these things, a nationalist strategy that involves a high-risk anti-Kurdish offensive on the border with Syria and the return of millions of Arab and Turkmen refugees does his election campaign a favor by separating the national conversation from the larger problem. However, President Erdogan will need to strike a balance between helping the devastated southern provinces and the Assad regime and its SNA allies.